All right, guys, I'm going to slow the pace down here a little bit for those of you who are having trouble, understanding the wall structure and the floor structure and things like that. This is basically going to be a series of videos and an overview of the most recent test we had where the test was about our floor and our wall structure. And you were to design me just a small square building of certain dimensions, with a room of certain dimensions, and components such as the walls themselves and the floors of certain specifications. Okay, so what I'm going to start with in this particular video is to go over again with you the structure of a wall. Okay. This is a cutaway. This is a wall with sort of the materials, the different layers kind of ripped away so that you can see all the components at once. This component that I just highlighted, this is drywall. This is on the interior of your house, the inside of your house. That's what gets the paint, or whatever it is, whatever color paint you want, or it may be something like a paneling or something like that as well that you put over that drywall. But this is drywall, okay? That's gypsum material, and they sometimes call it sheetrock. They also call it gypsum wallboard. It goes by several names, and you have to get used to all those different names. Now, on the other side of this drywall, you see it's open with there's no vapor barrier between this drywall and then the wall structure. And that's just typically the way we build them in this area of the country. We don't put that interior vapor barrier like you would see in Revit once you start Revit up and you go to like a default type of wall and they have that interior vapor barrier. We don't typically use that here, or not in a residential sense anyway. The pink stuff you see, that is the insulation that is inside the wall. And when you're working in Revit, you don't have to add that, and I don't think you really can add that to the wall. But you do, later on, you do calculate its R value. But we won't spend much time on that. But just wanted to let you know that's what that was that pink insulation. Beyond or with the pink insulation is the 2x4 framing system. This is what we call the wall's core. The core is responsible for supporting the wall itself, not any of the other layers. The other layers are pretty much for looks and or for thermal or vapor protection. These timbers, studs, the ones that are vertical, they're made of 2x4, so a 2x4 constructed home would consist of these inside the walls, and they don't really measure 2 inches by 4 inches. You have to remember, you have to put this in your head, that a 2x4 is actually 1.5 by 3.5 inches. Of course, as you scale upwards, it's the same thing. With a 2x6, which is a little bit wider board, it's 1.5 by 5.5 inches. If you go to a 2x8, then things start to change a little bit. A 2x8 is 1.5 by 7 1/4. Notice the difference. I said 7 1/4, which means instead of being a 1/2 inch shorter than its nominal declaration, it is 3/4 of an inch shorter. Okay, but those thicknesses are very important when you're designing a wall system, because the wall system has to reflect the actual size of the actual material. Now, beyond the wall framing on the exterior side of the house, or what we call the exterior side of the core boundary, is sheathing. This is a plywood sheathing, and it is made with multiple plies of wood. They're cut very thin, and then they are stacked together with their fiber direction going in opposite directions. Okay, and then they glue them and press them, and that makes them very strong. Okay, so this is plywood sheathing. It is usually always 3/4 of an inch. If it's not 3/4 of an inch, it will probably be 7/8 of an inch. But if you don't know, or if you're not given that information, then you should default to 3/4 of an inch always. The next layer is right here, the vapor barrier, the vapor retarder. Okay, that is what we also call house wrap. And that house wrap is, they have it made of different types of materials back in the old days, and even sometimes now they still use a tar paper. Sometimes they use a tar paper with a foil back on it. Sometimes it is just a foil type of film, like a plastic type film, but with foil in it. And what that does is that keeps moisture, and also helps keep a little bit of warm or cold air outside of the house. And then, of course, last we have the exterior finish, which in this case is brick. Okay. Now bricks can vary in size, but typically, like the ones that are used in Revit, they're about, I think they are 3 7/8 inches thick. I don't recall. Let me see. Okay, in this instance, they're 4 inches thick, so that's good too. So, 3.5 to 4 inches thick is typically what the bricks are going to be. And again, when it comes to constructing our wall, we're interested in this front side to back side dimension. Okay, front side to back side, front side to back side. That is how we're going to get our overall wall thicknesses. Okay, so that is the overview of the wall. Stay tuned for the next video, and I will show you how to build your wall system.